But why is this subject important? How to manage finances together as a couple. Why is it important? Let me give you 3 reasons why this is a very important subject. Number 1, because many divorces, when you trace them, they have something to do with differing views for a couple on marriage, on money. So it means that if the two of you are not agreed on money, there are great possibilities that you may not last together many years. And that's talking to all of us. We have just done, we are on our 42nd years of marriage, but even us in our 40s in marriage, after more than 40 years, it's a matter that must be agreed. Otherwise, many retiring pension couples are fighting over the little money that is available. And it's very important that you understand you can enjoy your marriage in old age if you don't agree on how to deal with the money when making it, when using it, and when even dispensing it. That is inheritance. How will you give it away to your children or whoever comes after you? So you can see clearly it's not a subject you can ignore, and you only ignore to your own destruction. Number 2 is because Jesus talked about money a lot, so that when you go through the teachings of Jesus, you will see a lot about money, including that the love of money is the root of all evil. And so if you don't talk about how to deal with money, and one or both of you have actually got the love of money, you not only will have a bad marriage, you also miss heaven. So it needs to be understood clearly that you have to find a way of looking at money, your attitude to money, so that it doesn't get to where it deprives you of heaven. So these are very, very important subjects. Thirdly and importantly, is because we all have a calling. There's a calling for the spouse, there's a calling for yourself, then there's a calling for you as a couple. There's a reason God brought you together in a marriage. And to make it happen, money plays a role. Money is the one that shows whether you are operating within your calling. And so if you don't discuss it, there will be trouble in that marriage. Unfortunately, given the amount of time I have, I may not go on with that. But I hope that tells you how important it is. However, money is a very small aspect of the totality of marriage. And if you are going to manage money properly, you must manage it according to what Christian marriage is all about. In Matthew, Jesus is saying, please do not look at the marriage of Solomon or marriage of David or marriage of Hosea and start making your marriage on the basis of the Old Testament saints. He says, it was not like that from the beginning. So if you want to manage your money properly, do not copy any one of those Old Testament saints. Go back to the book of Genesis and see what the intention of God was on how marriage was to be done. And so I invite you to go to Genesis chapter 2 and see why was marriage to be started, what are the basics of marriage. And here we learn that is why a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they become one flesh. Adam and Eve were both naked, and they felt no shame. That is a description of the first marriage. And so if you are talking about biblical family finance policies, if you are setting up biblical finance policies, they must be in agreement without definition of marriage by God in Genesis chapter 2. Let's just try to expound on this and how it relates to your policies on how to manage money as a family. Just look at the first phrase. That is why a man leaves his father and mother. There is a message there, much wider, but for us in this particular discussion, we only think about money. How do you leave your father and mother? Obviously, you leave them physically, you can leave them psychologically, but the most important proof that you have actually obeyed this requirement of a biblical marriage is that you have left them economically. If you don't leave them economically, there will be a problem. Begin a new finance ownership where parents are not welcome. You cannot call yours a biblical marriage if you have not left your father and mother on the issues of money. Remember what they say? Whoever pays the piper calls the tune. In other words, they will be very clear that if your parents are the ones sponsoring your marriage, they'll also ask you, and by the way, last time I gave you a cow, how are you milking it? That wife of yours doesn't even know how to milk. Now, you say, Papa, you are interfering in my marriage. I'm interfering in my cow. When you accepted my cow, you also accepted that I can give you direction. My friend, you cannot expect to have a biblical marriage if you do not have financial independence. That does not mean your parents cannot give you give you an inheritance, but it must not be a promised inheritance. It must be an actuated inheritance. They should not be telling you, I'll give you that piece of land. Tell them it is not mine until you give it. For now, keep with it. It's okay. I can run my marriage the way I am. The day he gives you, he will write a title and transfer the thing to you. As soon as he does that, it's now yours. You can manage it. He cannot use that land after he has transferred it in order to manage you. But in as long as it's a promise, he is promising to give you the land. He will keep saying, that plot of land I promised to give you. The way you seem to be operating in that as your marriage, I don't think I'm still giving you the land. What do I need to do? That wife of yours, you need to discipline her. I don't think the way last time you came here, she was behaving right. Now you realize, my wife, if you don't behave, we will lose the plot. A whole 10 acres. Please behave. Now who is running your marriage? It's being run by remote control, by the promise of a piece of land. And I repeat myself, I am not suggesting you cannot receive property from your parents, but do not act on the basis of the promise. If you are buying a plot, buy for yourself. If in addition to that you get land from your father, surely you can manage bigger land. If you have 5 acres of your own and it gives you 10 acres, you manage 15. So don't operate like you have something not yet given. And then one thing I keep asking people, surely, if your parents have actually brought you up, come to the level of they educated you, sacrifice heavily. Now you are educated, you are running, there's something you are doing that is you are earning an income. Shouldn't you be the one helping your parents rather than continue to expect things from your parents? Why can't you run a new economy, a separate economy, and you are not relying on your parents? And the Lord can bless you to the extent that even your parents feel embarrassed about giving you anything. Because whatever they have in totality, even if they deprived all the other children, it's so small compared with what you have, they stop interfering with your marriage on the basis of an inheritance. Because God has given you much more than that. I hope you start understanding why God, in defining a biblical marriage, insisted that you must leave your father and mother. But my understanding is that those are not the only people you leave. They are the people that are the closest and most influential. But if you are going to leave your father and mother economically, you must leave other people too. You must not have an uncle or an employer or a boss who dictates how you run your marriage. Because you see, if you can leave your father and mother, who is this other person who should be calling the shots in your own marriage? The biblical requirement is for you to start a new marriage, a biblical marriage. You must economically determine to run independent of others. What does that mean? It means that if all you can afford is a rented house in Korogosho, and all you can afford are 2 cups and 2 knives and two spoons, you are okay. We are not suggesting that as a couple you need to be rich. Like I'll be saying in a short while, riches or poverty do not determine the joy of your marriage. So it means that your parents can be rich living in Mudaiga and you are living in Korogosho, but you have a happy marriage. Because the important thing is the cup and the knife, you know where it came from. So you are happy. This is what God has given you. And because the two of you accept what you have, as you pray for God to give you more, you are happily married. You'll be happy. So we are not suggesting that you have, because for you to be dependent, you require more money. No. Become independent at the level of income you have. And you'll discover, like I'll be saying, the joy of your marriage has nothing to do. Maybe I should say it just right this time. Are you aware that there are more divorces above a certain level of income? I have quoted it. I've quoted in my book, The Secret of Contentment, that anybody who is above $1 million income per year, chances that they will end up in divorce is far much higher than anybody whose income is $100,000 per year. I'm not suggesting that you now become poor so that your marriage doesn't collapse. But this is properly documented statistics that people who actually end up staying together, it's not when it sounds like the more the money come in, it brings up problems. And data, okay, that's US data, but I doubt that the Kenyan data is any different. Data clearly shows an increase in income is not an increase in longevity of your marriage. An increase in income is not an increase in the joy of your marriage. And I think then it is very, very important. And I thought, even if we don't have a lot of time to discuss other things, we need to discuss that idea that a biblical marriage is a marriage where the father and mother have left. That's why I have a big quarrel with the Kikuyu Itara. You know Itara. Now I'm talking to married couples, so I'm too late. If you had an Itara, I'm too late. But if you are the one old enough to have children, please don't have an Itara. What's an Itara? Itara is a Kikuyu word that talks about where firewood is dried up inside the house. And so, a girl who is getting married to your son is supposed to come in advance, not to know the son's house, but to know the mother's house, the mother of the son house. And then they are shown where the firewood can be dried for a very good reason. Because when you finally get married, you'll not have dry firewood. So which firewood do you use? You will cook with your mother. And so you will use your mother's. So the message to a Kikuyu in an Itara is that you are not marrying the son, you are marrying the family. And you will not just have the son as the one leading your marriage. Your mother-in-law will have power. And obviously that's why the son used to build one house behind the mother-in-law. And therefore, the mother-in-law not only ran her marriage, she also had an influence on the son's marriage. So how can a Christian who understands the principles of biblical marriage, how would they end up having an Itara? Then promise that you are going to have one economy. The firewood will be shared. My friend, begin your own house with your wet firewood. Learn how to dry the firewood. Do not mix the two economies. She will soon say, hey, you took all my firewood. What's wrong with you? What kind of a woman did my son marry? All of that because of sharing firewood. Because you believe in Itara. That's basically one of the things that you have to deal with. The older you are as a couple, the less relevant that message is. Because by now, maybe you have reached a level where you have economic independence. But then, I'm talking to people like the Kenyans who are now entering the parenting, where they will be parents-in-law not too many years from now. So, I am talking to them, telling them, please don't look forward to bringing in a girl for your son. If she comes, she belongs to your son, not to you. You must, parents among us, must allow our children to run their marriage economically dependent. If you transfer money, let it be a gift, gone. Don't follow it. And it's very, very important that we learn. It's a very important principle, very, very important principle in dealing with this issue. Principle number two of biblical family finance management is in the phrase, once you leave your father and mother, you must be united to your wife and become one flesh. So it's not enough that you have left your parents. The second thing is, do you own the money together? Because here they are saying, be united to your wife. What does united mean? Of course, a lot of people think united is in the bedroom. That's one united. But there's also united in terms of psychology, emotionally supporting one another. But there's also united in terms of income. The money the wife had, the money the husband has becomes one. It's now owned together. And it's a very important thing. You have heard me say before, let me repeat, that biblical marriage is like communism, where each party makes money according to their ability, so that both the wife and the husband must work together to make money, but use according to need. In other words, you must use money together according to the budget. And it doesn't matter who made the money. It does not matter who made the money. Whoever makes the money, that's okay. And this is a very, very important issue that is causing a lot of trouble in marriages, especially when the wife is the one who ends up earning more. You see, now, when you enter into a biblical marriage, you have one economy. In one economy, if the wife gets more money, she doesn't get any money herself. It's the economy, the joint economy, that gets more money. If the husband gets more money, he doesn't get the money. It's the economy, the new economy, that gets together. So it really doesn't matter. See, when God wants to bless you, he can bless using the root of the wife, or he can bless using the root of the husband. It doesn't matter who uses. When the money finally comes together, it's for the growth of that family and their children. So you can't dictate to God, God, I am the husband. Make sure my salary increases before my wife. No. All you need is to pray, God, meet our needs. Help our economy to grow. Now, if he chooses to use your wife, continue. Now, you can see the intentions of God was to deal with this issue of competition within a marriage. It is not meant to be there. Because after you left your mother and father, and your wife also leaves her mother and father, when you come together, you become united, you become one flesh. You have one economy. And what that then means is there is no possibility that it matters who has more money. When money is being together, the wife will never feel richer than the husband. In a lot of marriages, including Christian ones, some of them listening to me just now, you have where the wife feels very rich and she is very sorry she's married to a poor husband. And of course, I've been involved in counseling such marriages where he says, my husband is not a go-getter. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know why God gave me such a husband. Because in your own mind, you are the rich one. It can't be a biblical marriage. In a biblical marriage, you are either equally rich or equally poor. Nobody is richer than the other. So some of the times you are counseling in a marriage and they are telling you, I gave my husband a loan of 20,000 shillings. That was 3 years ago. He still has not paid. Surely, who was borrowing from the other? What kind of... And these are two Christians talking. There's no way the left hand can lend the right hand because they belong to the same body. You have a marriage, that I don't deny, but you don't have a biblical marriage. The way you are running your marriage is certainly not scriptural. And I'm sure you have heard me talk about the issue of federation marriage. What's a federation marriage? Where you run your life independently, except 3 things. You share the house, you share the bed, and your foreign affairs is the same. It means you have one name, you are both called ngangas. That is foreign affairs. People see you as one. Also defense. If you touch Rebecca, utaniona. It's a very serious matter. So those 2 ministries of defense and foreign affairs, most Christian couples have no problem. But in the rest of the time, they are running independent marriages. That's why the wife is rich, the husband is poor. My friend, Christian marriage, you read it for yourself. It's one flesh. You don't have a federation. You have a unitary government, every rank together, like we have in Kenya, where the economy grows together and everybody benefits. But I'm told in America, where they have a federation, California can get very rich, and Ohio is not getting rich. And people even have to migrate within the same country to look for the wealth. My friend, that's not a Christian marriage. Let me give you a few signs of a federation marriage. These are people who are in agreement, they love each other, but they tell the wife, your income will look after revenue expenditure items. But the man will look after capital expenditure items. What are capital expenditure? Items that have titles. What is revenue expenditure? Items that have no title. School fees has no title. Clothing has no title. That's the wife. Buying a plot, taking a mortgage, that's a man. Now, the trouble in such a federation is sometimes inflation hits certain items, not all items. The prices of houses are not going up, but meat and wheat flour are going down, are going up. The wife feels from today, we are not going to eat meat anymore. Say, no, you must eat meat. After all, the husband is not feeding the inflation. So he insists they must eat meat daily. Unataka nimalizike, you want to finish me. Now, can you imagine? That's the kind of marriages some of them are represented in this group, where inflation is touching one and not touching the other. And so they start looking at each other with the bad eyes because, you are not getting affected. That's what a federation is. I agree. It's very important to understand that the reason people have federation is because, number 3 things, they fear each other, they don't want to collide, therefore, run your thing, I run my thing, therefore we don't have a lot of problem with each other. Number 2, they don't trust each other. And because they don't trust each other, you don't want somebody getting access to your money in case they misuse it. Number 3, they really don't even understand biblical marriage. So they think it's okay, it's a choice. In other words, you can choose what to do. In other words, you do not believe the Bible is a director on issues of marriage. So it's important to understand if you are going to have a biblical marriage, it will be very, very important that you understand you must have unitary economy, where both of you raise income together, and it doesn't matter who gets more, as long as both of you are trying, but you use it according to a budget. You must have joint ownership of all that you possess. Again, for 3 reasons. Number 1, you vowed it anyway. You said, I give you my own possession. By the time you are doing that, you have only a box of clothes. So it's not very difficult for a wife to just say, I give you everything. But unfortunately, you did not. The pastor forgot to put a limit to say only for the first 1 year. Now, 40 years later, you are very rich and your wife is very poor. You want to revise. It's too late. You vowed. The vows the pastors make us vow are that we are going to give everything we have to the spouse so that you own it together. Number 2, it's because it's a biblical requirement and you have read that. Number 3, it is what will give you what we call economies of scale. Those are 3 reasons why you need to own jointly everything. What are economies of scale? If your wife owes money and they got to apply for a mortgage, they can only report their money. If the husband owns her own money, went to apply, but when you apply together, they look at the joint income. And you are going to qualify for certain mortgages that you could not have qualified if you had gone alone. It makes economic sense in terms of your economic development as a couple to put resources together, budget together. That way you are able to save more and invest more, and it's very, very important that's understood. So I think it's very important to understand, and I'm giving you human reasons as to why I understand why the Bible gave us the requirements. No Christian marriage, I am saying, therefore, if you are married, money is not married. If you are still not married, it's just like I tell Christians, if your money is not saved, you are likely to be saved yourself. You need to come to where God owns everything. So if you are born again, even your money must be used for God's purpose. Similarly, if you are truly married, your man must also get married. And therefore, you will not have a poor husband or a poor wife. All of us will be either equally poor or be equally rich. And my prayer, of course, I'm going to, I want to stop as quickly as possible so that we can have questions. It's not very easy. But let me say so before you ask me the question. Number one, I'm aware what I am saying, I'm only recommending it because it's biblical. In my assessment, our assessment, even for the last 25 years, we have been involved in marriage counseling and marriage seminars. We have come to a conclusion that about 60% of all born-again believers, 60% of them live in federations. Maybe only 40% have given in to this issue of oneness in money. So I'm already aware it is not practiced by many people. Number two, I'm aware that you are certainly taking a risk, because if one of you is not trustworthy, there will be troubles with the way money is used. And you could end up with no money for school fees because one of the two parties, and it doesn't have to be the man, or it can sometimes be the wife, who has a deep desire to use money and uses money she has and even money she does not have. Within no time, you are using the family money to pay debts the wife took without even telling you. So I agree there are challenges within that issue of owning money together will bring a challenge. I'm not naive about it. However, one of the things I do know is that when you budget money together, it forces you to discuss. It forces you to be each other's keeper. It forces you to be accountable to one another. When you put money aside, it allows independence. And that independence can lead even to dogo somewhere else, because basically I'm on my own. It can also lead to pulling to different directions to the detriment of the marriage. So given the advantages of taking the risk to have your money together, the risk, I'm admitting it's a risk, but the return is so high. The return of oneness, the return of trustworthiness, because you are once you have money together, you'll soon see whether I'm trustworthy or not, because you'll see the money is going to places that I don't want to tell you where it went. When I have my own money, I can run my things without you discovering. Once you have money together, you'll see money disappear from the account and you have no idea where it is going. And somebody will start telling you, no, I'm not telling you. So you know there is a problem. So the advantages of running the money together far outweigh the risk, but I'm admitting there is a risk. So we have gone through two items on biblical family finance policies. Number one, the importance of economic independence from any other person, including your father and mother, so that you run your own thing, dependent on God together, but not dependent on an outsider. Number two, that you must have a joint economy. And I think that will be very important. But thirdly, and importantly, we read in verse 25, and Adam and his wife were both naked. What does naked mean? It means transparent. I know there's an organization called Transparency International that talks about the importance of accountability and responsibility. What we are learning is, in a biblical marriage, people are naked. They don't cover up themselves. And for this particular talk, is about money. If you have any debts, you do not wait to tell your wife later. She knows even before she weds you that you have, this is your income, and these are the debts you are paying. If you are buying things, it means that you are buying them together. If you had things you owned earlier before marriage, they must be declared openly. You must be naked financially. And it will be very, very important to understand that, because in a lot of cases, people don't want to be open. If your parents give you something, you need to register it in the name of two of you, because your parents may not want to give your wife, and they will use that property to separate your marriage. It's important to be naked means you are open in every way. It means Every money you have is run together, jointly, by the wife and the husband, and you are open about it. It means your wife knows your salary. You can't get a salary increase without your wife knowing. After all, the salary increase of the husband actually belongs to the wife. You said so during the wedding day. So it will be important to say, when you talk about the transparency, it's very clear. And some of us even show that lack of transparency, and pastors clap for them. You find the pastor saying, you can't believe Brother Nganga, he loves his wife so much. Look, when you go outside, you'll see he has bought his wife a car, and the whole church claps. 3 things. Number 1, for the husband to surprise the wife with a car, where did he get the money from? He is a thief. Because the money belonged to the family, then he stole it, and part of it, like corrupt people normally do, they steal it, then give in donations in Harambes. So the wife is already getting a donation out of his theft. Now, surely, how can the pastor ask us to clap for a thief? But the second thing is, for you to surprise your wife with a car, it means that you are not transparent. She may not even have known you could afford a second car. That's why both of you have been using one car with all the challenges. Kumbe, you could actually have afforded a car. And all this while you have sat on money. It shows you have no transparency. My friend, the word of God is saying a biblical marriage is a marriage of nakedness. Not nakedness to the world. Don't tell outsiders. Don't tell your brothers and sisters and your aunts and your uncles about how you run your marriage. But your wife must know in totality everything about money. How you are making it, how you are using it, how you are investing it, how you are saving it. It must be not something you can. There is no way you can be surprising your wife. Next year, when COVID is less, I'm taking you to Italy for a holiday. Says, what? Can we afford? Don't worry. Your husband knows ways. Now, my friend, which ways? Are you going to be corrupt? How will you get the money? Now, your wife should be aware that if you are talking like that, she should not be rejoicing. She should be realizing this guy is on his way to hell. He is breaking the rules of the Bible. Which other rules is he breaking? It will be important to understand that this idea of nakedness is a biblical requirement. Again, it's not easy, but it's the only way. Let me give you 3 possibilities when you are naked. It is in making money. I've already mentioned it. You will share together. It's in using money. It means that you cannot go to your village and your parents ask you for 10,000 and you give them and your wife doesn't know. Next time you come together with your wife, your mother will say, we must thank you, our son. That 10,000 you gave us, it has been so useful. Then your wife looks at you like, you gave 10,000. How? You stole our money and gave it without the owner's permission? Because it's not your money. It's our money. So, when you are giving to your parents without your wife knowing, and most of the time it's actually not men who do that. We men are the ones who, I think, in my own assessment, women are worse. Giving their family without ever the husband getting to know. My friend, I think you need to understand you are lacking in nakedness. And that lack of nakedness means you are not operating your marriage as a biblical marriage. So it means on those issues of finances, it will be very, very important that we actually are transparent. No surprises. But I'm very quick. I don't have enough time to talk on budgeting, but you can find the issue of budgeting, family budgeting, in my YouTube account. But let me quickly say, whenever I'm talking to families about budgeting, I always add that you must have what is called contingency. What is contingency? I worked for a multinational for a long time, and you were allowed, beyond the agreed budget, you could go over or below 5%, and you did not have to explain. 5%, you do not have to explain. You still got in your balance scorecard, you still got your promotion, you still got your bonus, even if you had to use the money beyond 5%. It's called contingency. Contingency means it's money you can use without explanation. And because Even in marriages, we can suffocate each other. It is important that every marriage allows 5%, which is not to be included in the budget. It means the wife can buy her underwears without asking for money from the husband. It's embarrassing to bring the wife to have to apply for money for underwears, you know? And it's the same thing. If I meet Gavan in town, she doesn't have to ring Mrs. Kenya to say, I have just met Nganga. Could I buy him a soda? No, sure, there needs to be contingency money that allows Kenya to buy me a soda without having to seek permission. And as long as you are not using any money above the 5%, you have the freedom to use it and explain later. But beyond 5%, any organization will tell you now you are entering into confusion from budgeting. So I am not suggesting that you cannot buy your wife a handkerchief. But I think for most of us and our level of income, you cannot take her to Italy on contingency. But you can buy her a handkerchief. You can buy her during her birthday. You can buy her something. But if it's something big you want to do in her birthday, it must be brought to the budgeting table and say, you know, I'm thinking during your next birthday, we need to use money like this. She needs to agree. Although it is her who will benefit, you need to agree. She needs to be in the budget. In the budgetary scheme, and it will be very important. That's what we really are talking about when we talk about transparency. I have to finish because I want us to have a discussion, and it's already 5 past. I would like to leave at least 20 minutes so that we can discuss, put it in discussion. The last item there says lack of shame, no shame. They felt no shame. My friend, my understanding of that is that irrespective of what money you have or don't have, it will be important to understand whether little or much, you don't feel ashamed about the income. You know, sometimes the wife is so embarrassed about their poverty that she does not even want to tell the parents to visit. That means you are embarrassed about your level of income. My friend, felt no shame. It's a very dangerous thing to be ashamed of your condition, to be ashamed of your husband, to be ashamed of your wife. It's very, very important to be proud about. Marriage thrives on that pride that God gave me this wife. Remember, that's why the white man said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Because the ugliest woman, to her husband, she is very beautiful. And he's not pretending, he believes it. He believes that that she is beautiful and knows it, that she is beautiful. So what we are saying in financial management, a lot of women, for example, use a lot of money on dresses. A lot of husbands use a lot of money in trying to impress others. My friend, the moment you are embarrassed about your condition, your budget will not be relied on. You are going to end up using money in order to impress others. The first thing I'm recommending here is for you to accept the condition you are in. Why? Because any money you have is God's money, only put under your care. I've written a whole book on it. It's called Leadership. A Leader is a Steward. And I emphasize in that book that any income Rebecca and I have is actually not ours. It belongs to God, and God is interested on how we shall use it. What that means, when you have little money, we are not poor. When you have rich money, we have a lot of money, we are not rich. We are, whether little or much, we are just stewards of God's money. And you know that if God has given you little to look after, there will be a problem. There will be no problem as long as He has given. Did you note in Matthew chapter 25, the guy who brought 10 back, and the other one brought 4 back, they were both given the same reward. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into your master's rest. Even the guy with one talent was not condemned for having 1 talent. He was condemned for not investing it. And it's important then to understand in our master's view, he does not regard the ones who are richer as better than the ones who are poorer. So we need to come to where we work very hard, believing that God will bless the work of our hands. That if after working so hard, all we have is this, we should be happy that God has given it and ask Him, God, we still pray for more, but for now, we are happy with what we have. Now, that's really the view you need to have as you run your marriage finances. That God is the one who is going to provide. God is the one. He says in Deuteronomy, He says, I am the one who gives you the wisdom to make wealth, or gives you the ability to make profit, depending on which version you are reading. It is so, therefore, any income you have is a gift from God. It's God's provision. So you should not be embarrassed because, why am I saying that? Let me repeat myself. Because the moment you are not happy where you are, and I'm not suggesting you should not be ambitious for more, but you should be happy where you are, even as you are ambitious for more. If you are not, number one, you'll start looking for who to blame. And you start blaming your husband, and that will affect your marriage. Start blaming your wife, and that will affect your marriage. Number two, when you are not happy, you'll become ungrateful to God. And lack of thanks is one of the problems that will give you spiritual problem. Number three, when you are ashamed of what you have, you are likely to start playing games, pretending and using money, trying to be richer than you are. And that will condemn you to operating above your means. Not which is a subject I would like to have discussed, but I don't have the time. That a biblical marriage always operates within their means. You are happy to be where you are. If you can't afford a car, you are happy on number 11, 2 legs. And you are happily walking. When God wants to give you a bicycle, He will. When He wants to give you a car, He will. And you are working as hard as possible. Let me finish by saying that it does not, all I'm saying does not imply it's okay to be lazy. In my own view, there will be more people in hell because they were lazy than there will be because they were drunkards. Although both sins will get you to hell, whether it is laziness or drunkenness. So to have a lazy wife who just wants to depend on her husband and does not want to contribute in any way, she has no problem with her husband. Her husband is able to look after her. But God will ask her, what did you do with the time I gave you? What did you do with the skills I gave you? So a wife needs to do their best for the good of the family. The same way, these husbands who are relying and depending on their wives, hardly doing anything. Remember, we said from the beginning, your wife can earn more, but you can't earn nothing. You must be contributing to the economy of the marriage. So we are not suggesting about one party, both of them must be doing their very best to the glory of God. And God wants diligence, and it will be important that we do it. Peter, our time is up if we want to leave enough time. So I want to hand over the meeting back to our brother. Is it Tony? Or you are somebody else's MC? Okay.
Thank you, John. I would suggest if you could continue a little, then we wait for questions. I haven't seen any questions yet. I would encourage us to write on the chat any question that you'd want Nganga to address briefly. But while we wait for them, kindly, if you could maybe move to a point or two.
Okay. Now I have your permission. I didn't want to be accused of having refused discussion. Talking without questions isn't quite right. I wanted to emphasize, and I've already introduced it, having much or little money does not really matter. You know, the belief about money is a problem, never about money. If you believe money is that important, the love of money, that's where there will be a problem. And it will be very, very important to understand that. And what I'm trying to say in this point is that if you don't know how to manage little money, when you get more, there will be certainly trouble in your own marriage. And I thought, in addition to all the other points I gave earlier, please get to understand that. You know, I still remember we had just gotten a mortgage house. We are newly married, and we got a mortgage house. And we went there as soon as we were given the keys. But then Kenya Power, of course, that's getting to almost 40 years ago. That's 1980, 81 or 82. It's almost 40 years ago. And we had no light. For 2-3 months, they kept saying, next Thursday, we are becoming to connect electricity. And we wondered, surely, we should not have left our rented house. Here we had problems. But you know what they did? Since we are using a candle, it meant if we are in the kitchen, all of us, that is me and we are only 3 of us. There was only one child. We all go to the kitchen. When you go to the toilet, we might all have to go. Now, it meant there was such a level of togetherness caused by lack of light. My friend, you need to understand that lack of money is not a problem. It's your attitude to it. I keep telling people, lack of a car is not your problem. You keep thinking, when we had a car, my wife will not be pushing me so hard. Wait until you get a car. You know, earlier he could leave you, so you come with the matatu. He goes with the first matatu when you are going to church and you come with the second one. The moment you have one car, many families know, hey, your wife can't come by matatu and you go because you are the one preaching. No, how can you leave us? What kind of preaching will you be doing? So you wait. Then both of you are late. By the time you are arriving in church, you can hardly preach. You are so unhappy your wife got you late. Now, can you imagine? Before you had a car, you thought the car would sort out your problems. The truth is, you now have a car, and because one car is causing you trouble. Because now you have to agree in advance as you go to work in the morning, how you operate in the evening. And then he wants to meet his friend. You can't. You have to drop me home first. Especially if you come from Nairobi with the traffic jam in Nairobi. Once you arrive home, you can hardly go back. So you are feeling really molested by this one car. And you keep imagining, if only we had 2 cars, things will be okay. So God finally blesses you cars. That's the beginning of your trouble. Why? You leave in the morning, you do not have to share about where you are going, because after all, she has her car, you have your car. In the evening, you remember to meet Brother Nganga, and Brother Nganga has stories upon stories. So by 9 o'clock, you are still talking and fellowshipping. Your wife is already, and you forgot that your mobile ran out of battery, so she can't reach you. She's about calling the police, only for you you have really enjoyed fellowship. You arrive at 10 o'clock rejoicing. She says, what? You are laughing, smiling after you have to take an ass through? There is a Baghdad war at home. What brought it? A second car. As long as you had one car, you used to share everything. Now with the 2 cars, you don't share. And in the process, you cause yourself trouble. I hope you can get what I'm trying to talk about. If you don't have the principles of sharing with one another, talking to one another, the more money you have, the more difficult it will be. So do not think that if you don't sort out your problem now, that when you get richer, the problem will be sorted out. The thing I've been emphasizing all through is recognize God's ownership. Please understand you are just a steward. So the first solution to managing family finances is the recognition is not the wife's money, it's not the husband's money, it's God's money allocated to the 2 of you to manage. In your home, he must not be the unseen visitor. You have gone to homes and seen a placard written, Jesus is the unseen visitor. No. That's not a Christian plague. A Christian plague, when Jesus comes, he's a master and Lord. I was very happy. These days we attend many services by turning the knob. One of the services I attended today said, we do not talk about Jesus during Christmas coming as a baby. No! He is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He is coming as judge. So when you become a Christian, he becomes to your home as the Lord. He's the one who calls the shots. So you need to understand clearly, he is in your home and must direct how you use your money. You are only stewards of what God has given. So what I'm really saying is that money must be seen and treated as a balancing issue. Much of life is a question of maintaining a balance. In your personal finances, we must maintain a balance between income and expenses. And that's why family budget is not extra. It's a must. You cannot run a biblically run marriage without a common budget. Whether you do it once a week or once a month or once a year, the important thing is you have agreed how to spend money. But don't just agree. It's not a budget if it only talks about the expenses. It's called a budget when it balances. If it's not balancing, it's not a budget. You must ensure that you are not planning to use more money than the income you believe God will give you. It will be very important. You must find a balance in everything you do. You still must do the things that have been done. You must eat and you must have a balanced diet. But the balanced diet can be done at almost at any income. You must exercise. Exercising can be done by becoming a member of a gym at a very expensive price. And it can be very expensive. Before I retired, Shell had paid a club for me for a gym. And I think more than 10 years ago, it was more than 100,000 Kenya shillings. But I'm still exercising. I try to do 4 kilometers a day of walking. It costs me absolutely nothing. So you can budget on the level you want. And I'm not asking you to think poverty mindset. I'm saying be where God has placed you. And the same thing with the rest. You can take rest by going to your home village where there's only your mother left, so nobody's disturbing you. Or you can go to Mombasa. Where you choose should be dictated by the money God has given you. All I'm saying is you must live within your means. You must maintain a balance. And I think that will be a very, very important thing.
Maybe John, before, I don't know whether now you want to...
Remember, I'm at your beck and call. As soon as you tell me question time, I stop there.
It's because I'm aware that you are leaving at 3:30.
We have only got 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
Yes.
I have a few questions. Maybe because we have your notes, maybe you could share with maybe you can hear a few questions and see how many you are able to respond to. There's a question on debt. Someone is, of course, many people are appreciating the sharing, but someone has said, would you kindly mention what is your general take on debt? Maybe you can note that down. I read you one more. What is your general take on debt? The other question may be related to it. I hear you, Elder. Could you kindly mention something on loans? So debt and loans. Then there's also one that is so related. It's a situation. A lady got into her marriage 3 years ago with many debts, some of which she did not disclose to the husband. Now she's unable to balance her income with the undisclosed debts. Where should she start?
Let me allow Rebecca to. You'll go to the next, but let's try to deal with that first. I'm allowing Rebecca to comment on the questions.
I think the best I can do is just say hello to the people, and I will leave the issues of money and usage and loans to
okay.
who has given the talk.
At least you have heard her voice. The three questions. I hope I've not forgotten them, but I think they are generally about loans. So I'll comment about loans, and I want to say 3 things about loans. Number 1, you should never take a loan except as both of you. Of course, it doesn't mean that if you have in a savings cooperative in your place of work, your wife's name does not appear. But you do not take that loan without your wife's knowledge. You know why? If you are to die suddenly, the people you owe money will be on your wife. She will not know whether it is a genuine debt or they are trying to cheat her. It is bad to think you can take a loan or borrow money of any nature without your spouse knowing. And I think that's a very, very important thing, because a lot of people are left with a lot of problems at a later stage. That's the first thing. Number two, please, you should be of the view that you are better off at zero than negative. When you are poor and you have no loans, you are zero. You are at zero. When you have a loan, you are negative. And that's why a lot of people end up in trouble, because you see him driving a big car, living in big houses. One day, he loses his job and he has to leave the house, he has to leave everything. And because he was actually not at zero, he was negative, that family goes through a very big problem. So I'm again not suggesting you don't take loans. I already, even at my age, I still have taken a loan. Not too long ago, I took a loan. So I cannot start taking. Yeah, Rebecca and I know there's a loan we must clear. So we are not suggesting in any way you don't take loans. But those two principles are very important. Don't take a loan for the sake of it. But the third point, and very important, for every loan you take, you must first of all assume what I call the worst case scenario. This principle is a very important principle. It's also taught by the guy who wrote Think Big. What is he called? Carson. That when he was doing his surgeries, he always started with the worst case scenario. If you are trying to separate Siamese twins, what's the worst case scenario? And you can see, so that even if the worst happens, you had actually considered it. You should never take a loan without first of all assuming, if I'm unable to pay, how will we manage it? The moment you know how to manage in case you are unable to pay, and remember, the reason you are unable to pay is not deliberate. You may lose a job suddenly. The owner of the money may call on it earlier. There are a lot of things that do not think anybody unable to pay money is because they are bad at managing money. There are many of these reasons that can cause you to be unable to pay money. So you must first of all assume you will be unable to pay money. If you do, what will happen? That way you are caused to go into God's hands in prayer. It means that every loan you take it in prayer. And because you are taking it on the basis of God leading you, you know that He will help you not to go into debt. But in the worst case scenario, if He allows you to go into debt, you are not in shock. We will not come rushing you to hospital because you are in shock. Because you knew it could happen. You thought about what you would do. But of course, the worst case has happened. But you knew it could happen. Those are three principles we try to follow when taking a loan.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe one more, a quick one. What's your take on a young couple where the wife has a more stable employment and they agree with the husband for him to stay at home and babysit as the wife works to meet the needs of the family? What will be the balance between the man being the primary provider versus managing the situation at hand?
That's a very nice family. First of all, you must give them great credit. It means the husband is not asked to stay at home. They are discussing. He has already suggested, given what our children are going through and the age they happen to be in, one of us needs to stop working so that they can not stop working, but stop employment so that we have more flexible in the way which of us two should do it. If you say the husband who is earning 50,000 is the one to remain at work, and the wife who is earning 100,000 is the one to change employment, will that be good for the common economy? Certainly not. So you can see clearly what is wrong is for a husband to choose to stay home in order for the wife to look after him. But if it's an agreement between the two and they have done what is best, that will be okay. So that's my first point. The second point, you need to understand that the fact that you're not employed does not mean you don't work. Most of our parents never got employed, like my mother never got employed. But she paid my school fees. When I still can remember what she was doing with my younger brother. When she is cultivating, she will put the baby ahead. Cultivate. When she reaches the baby, she takes the baby, suckles the baby, then puts the baby ahead. You know, a lot of people think that our mothers were not working. That's a lot of work. By the time she goes, she has been both a mother, available to the child, and economically, she's the one who has provided for the family. So similarly, a man who stops employment does not mean he stops working. It means he now starts working on a job that can be combined, number one, with the availability to the children, number two, with the ability to go where she needs to go. And for example, these days there are jobs in the internet, like writing papers for people at a fee. My friend, you can do that and earn not as much money as you are earning at work, but you are still earning. So what happens is not that the husband stops being a provider, is that he provides less. But is he really providing less? The sacrifice of his job, in terms of the joy of working where he was working, the sacrifice of availability to the child, and how much you pay him for working there, can you see he's the one earning the money the wife is having? So in the end, working to look after your children is actually working. You are actually contributing to the family. So I think there would be no problem. However, if it's the wife who is looking down on the husband and says, surely you want peanuts, why don't you just sit at home? There will be chaos in that family. Even if the husband agrees and goes home, he will be crying throughout the day, then pretending to smile when you arrive. Now, it's very important to understand that it's not something that is good. It needs to be a matter that that the two of them have thought about for a long time, because the risks are real. A stay-home husband, given our culture, can cause chaos in marriage. It's not in your interest to tell a man to stay at home. Not because he's a Christian, but because he's an African. You know, it can be quite a chaotic thing. I can do one more question.
There's one we had asked. Let me see. There's the one that there was a lady who never disclosed how much loans she had during their courtship. Then they get married and realize they're in trouble. Just some counsel to that young couple there, where the husband gets to learn of their difficulties in marriage have to do with undisclosed loans. Could you do that, please?
Yeah, that's. I think partly to blame is us. If that person is in this fellowship, we did not help them before they got married. Our ministry is to singles is one thing. So the girl, there are possibilities. The girl did not know. He says, the loans are my loans. It's my problem. Even after we are married, I'm the one to pay them back. I'm earning. So she didn't see why tell the husband. That's bad, what we call premarital counseling. There was bad premarital counseling. So before we blame her, we better see the possibility of bad premarital counseling. But there's also a possibility that she did not want to be dumped by the husband. She says, if I tell him the kind of loans I have, I'll be dumped. So she blackmailed him, which is sinful. And she needs to repent if that's what she actually did. That you wanted him to discover, by the time he discovers, it's too late. Some people do that. Well, if you're a lawyer, you don't tell your wife that you had a child out of wedlock. And you know, among lawyers, the child will finally be brought anyway. So why didn't you say before you are married? Now, after she is married, what can she do? She has to look after your son. Now, it's wrong. And that needs to be said very, very clearly. But we do, before we condemn her, let us know there are several alternatives as to why she ends up there. I'm actually talking to the husband. Since there are two possibilities, the first thing you need to do is, since I know it is very disappointing, call a family meeting, the two of you, and tell her how disappointed you are. Find out from her what caused her to do it. Whatever answer she gives you, what she requires out of you, for your own sake, not even for her sake, for your own sake, what she requires is forgiveness. Please forgive her. Having forgiven her, when you took her debits and credits. It means her loans became yours automatically. So it means then you now have to sit together as a couple to agree, not her money to pay the loan, to pay back the loan, but the two of you. How can you look at the loan? If the loan is too high, go back to the people who loaned and ask them to do what is in banking terms is called rescheduling the loan. So that if you say instead of 5 years, I'll pay in 10 years, it will lower the payment per month, and that way you can be able to last. But let it not remain a grudge. If it remains a grudge, it will be a grudge on money, but it will soon be a grudge in the bedroom. It will be soon a grudge in the way you bring up children. It will be a poison that totally destroys your marriage. So husband, sorry for what you have found in, but God has a solution. We are told, for God so loved the world, including evil people, including witch doctors, all of them he loved them, that he gave his only begotten son. Similarly, be like Jesus. Give yourself to your wife and help to plan the future. You know, as soon as you forgive her, and as soon as you are planning how to pay together, that problem will no longer be a problem in your marriage. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Maybe John, just slightly, maybe just a minute. We have a few engaged couples planning to get married soon, and like you said, there is a need for that premarital. There is actually one of them, I think, who asked a question during courtship. Must I, as a man, take care of the needs of my girl?
That's a very good question.
So maybe you can end with that.
No, you see, if you start sharing money before the wedding, you are marrying. Remember, I said marriage is the economies becoming together. If the economies came together before marriage, 3 problems. Number 1, the wedding will be a joke because you are married even earlier. Number 2, which is very important, is that you have said you will get married next year if the Lord wills. You are now removing the will of the Lord. You have made an assumption that you are now married. You are as good as married. What about if you start using the money and then she decides she doesn't like you? Especially, and many, by the way, many people, we have gone through many couples where you educate the girl, once she has graduated and looks at you, your primary school teacher, says, no, surely you and me, where will we be taking each other? To Perekana wapi? But you are the one who paid the school fees. Now, it's important to understand, I do not recommend joint economies before the wedding. However, when it comes to the wedding itself, the wedding, you have to plan it together, budget it together as a couple. Anything else, let the two of you run separate economies. And then the joint economy is from the wedding day.
All right, thank you, John. Of course, that doesn't mean they don't buy each other coffee, of course.
No. There's remember I still have the contingency.
The 5%.
Yes. No, you can also, even, by the way, if it is not that if you feel you want to give a gift and it's within your budget, remember, as a single person, it's your own budget, isn't it? So you can give 100,000 shillings, but don't give it because she is your wife or because you become your wife. You're just generous. So even if she dumps you, you had already factored in the possibility because of saying, we will marry if the Lord wills. If the Lord does not will, you'll not go biting your fingers. You did not lose your money. You gave it. So I am not suggesting you cannot give money, but you can't run together. She cannot have expectations on you. You are not yet married, but she expects you to run her house, pay her rent, whatever. No, that's what I'm saying is wrong. But you, without being asked by the girl, can decide to help.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Elder John and our mom, Rebecca, for taking time to be with us this afternoon. We wish your time would have allowed for more of this, but we understand and we want to release you for your other engagement. We really appreciate the time, the teaching, and the ministry. Asante sana. May the Lord bless you and refresh you. Thank you for also the YouTube. Maybe you can say the name again.
John N. Nganga. John N. Nganga. There must be more than 20 that marriage videos or audios. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know whether the Galvans have a word for John and Rebecca as we release them. Then after that, we take a very short break and then we come back. Galvan?
Well, just to say thank you very much, John. That was very refreshing. And thank you for sharing very candidly. I think we need that kind of a voice.
Asante sana. I thought you were going to complain I used you as an example.
Anytime.
You know, you don't want to try new friends. They might so you normally use example with older friends because they can forgive you easily. Asante sana. God bless you. We are both going to another meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Asante sana. Wow.